Hello. Um, Hi, everyone. My name is Billy T, and this is Linda, and we're going to be presenting about how to design a startup for social good. So we'll be discussing what to consider when designing your startup and projects for social good, and that'll include topics on like business model, who to work with, and different ethical considerations along the path to building your startup. So first up, we'll address the question of like what is social good, and social good consists of like any actions that improve people's lives, improve your community, whether that's like your local community or like the global community, and then environment and animal rights as well. Yeah, so we, Linda and I, are part of Ethically, and Ethically is a company that we've started, and we're building a browser extension to help online shoppers shop for ethical products. So in the process of building this product and this startup, we've learned some things along the way about how to keep our company ethical and how to keep our social good focus at our core. And we want to share some of that knowledge with you today. So real quick, I'll ask if anyone's working on a project for social good, like drop it in the chat so we can know. I'd love to see that. But if you're not, then this is a great opportunity to learn how to go about it in the future. If any of the terms we use in this presentation are confusing, just let us know and we'll address them. And right now I'll go over the outline real quick for the presentation. We'll be talking about like the motivations. We'll be talking about like the motivations to start a social good project or startup, different business models and how you can keep your business model focused on social good, how to fundraise and where to fundraise, why to fundraise, and then some general questions to consider at the end.
All right, I will be talking to you about motives. So what kind of project do you want to work on and who will it impact? So what are some reasons why you'd want to create a project for social good? Maybe you enjoy the good and fuzzy feelings after helping someone out, or maybe you have a personal issue that you found others encounter too, or maybe it's just that you like problem solving. Whatever the case, designing a social good startup will leave you with a better idea of how to help society, better insight of how to help others and who to help, and a more impactful project. And what are some of the areas that you might consider when designing for social good? Social activism and human rights is a great approach. So creating a project that allows underprivileged voices to be heard or helping out people in need can definitely make the world a better place. Think about all the people around you. So how can you help those in your immediate community? And how can you help those beyond your community? Developing projects for the environment would also be another fantastic approach, whether that be finding ways of getting awareness for climate change, finding ways to reduce pollution, littering, how to incentivize the public to reduce the consumption habits, like shopping or buying certain kinds of foods. The possibilities of environmentally oriented projects are pretty endless. Animal rights is another really good project that a really good topic that you might want to develop a project or startup for. So according to the ASPCA, approximately 1.5 million shelter animals are euthanized every year. So if you think of anything that can help those puppies and kittens, that would be a really, really great thing to develop for. So think about what social issues strike your heartstrings the most, and the most important aspect of social good projects are that they address issues in people's lives, and trying to solve those issues is very important. And the fundamental goal and value of any product is solving that problem, so you might as well pick a problem that's important to you as well. And that the initial idea of Ethically was actually created when Billy was shopping online and he wanted to know if there were more ethical products available. And after talking with people, he realized that many were also struggling to find ethical brands and shops, myself included, and our team as well, and confused with where to buy from. So some obstacles that you might encounter are that you maybe want to know how to keep your project sustainable. And in this case, sustainable means that your company can function smoothly in the long term. Another is where to find funding so you can continue working on your project. And we'll go over funding at a later point in this presentation. Yet another question is, how do you effectively address problems and needs? So you might work on a project with the intention of helping others, but sometimes it's easy to miss the mark. And to help with this, really try to talk to your target audience, really examine their needs. Are they realistic needs? Are they actually in need? And also for existing and potential users. And yet another issue is integrity. So there's always a dilemma of balancing ethics and also the growth and profits that you might encounter.
All right, so next up is business model. So business model is super important because it's kind of like the core aspect of your business. And if you're able to bake social good into the core of your business, then you're ensuring that you're going to have a positive effect no matter what. So to start developing your business model, you want to start with a minimum viable product. And most of us as programmers, we want to jump straight into code as soon as possible. We have an idea, jump into code, make it a reality. And it feels really good. Programming is what we're good at. It feels productive, but you can start figuring out a business model even before writing any software. And a reason you might want to do this is because like if you're trying to build a really complex product, then you might spend thousands of hours, months, maybe years working on a product. And if you haven't validated, if you haven't checked that the business model actually works, then you might be making something, spending all this time building something that isn't actually valuable. So some examples of how you can build a minimum viable product without writing any software is like putting up a landing page. So just like a super simple stock website that explains the products that you're planning on building, and have a little email spot so that people can like sign up for your wait list and be first to know when you launch your product. And this is really good because like putting up a super simple website is super easy. It takes very little effort. And if you can get a bunch of people to give you their emails, then it shows you that there is demand for your product idea. And when you see that demand, then you can start and investing more time into it. It also gives you like an automatic audience. You get all these emails, and you have an automatic audience that you can send emails to. Another real life example. There's plenty of real life examples of that first method, but a specific example of another way you can do an MVP. There was a startup, and they realized that people need like on demand, what's the word? Like transportation for not like people, but for moving things. So like when you go to IKEA, you need to like bring home that like giant piece of furniture, and for a lot of people, like it's very cumbersome. It might not even fit in your car, and so they eventually built out a whole app so that people could order a truck and a mover to temporarily come over and help them get their stuff from IKEA to their homes. But before they did that, they the founders actually went to IKEA and hung out in the parking lot, and would go up to people who they saw were struggling, trying to load things into their car, and they would say, "Hey, do you want help? And we can help you. Just like sign up for our product," and people would pay, and that's immediate like confirmation that they were trying to solve a problem that people would actually pay for, and that's without having to write any software whatsoever. Yeah. So next up, we'll talk about some common business models. Business models can range from like requiring the user to pay like no money, or requiring them to pay a lot. So hidden revenue business model is where you give away the product for free. The user doesn't have to pay anything, but in exchange, the user is shown advertisements. So we're all familiar with this. You've got search engines that do this, social media, and then you have like a freemium business model, where you get like a stripped down version of the product for free, and if you want to expand or get other features that the product provides, then you have to start paying. So this is like Spotify, for example. And then premium pricing. This is when you charge high price, and good examples of this are like business to business companies. When a business is providing a solution for another business, because other businesses can afford like high price tags, as opposed to like individual users. An example of this is the Discourse Forum. They sell to other businesses and charge like $200 a month for their product, and the businesses buy it because they can afford it and it's valuable. In terms of incorporating social good into your business model, a couple of ways that we see that are what's called a one-for-one business model. This is where a company does a social good action every time like a product is purchased. So like every time a product is purchased, then they donate some money to charity, or every time a product is purchased, they plant a tree, for example. So that's one way to incorporate social good into your business. And another way, what we do at Ethically is we make money from like a percentage of every product that is purchased via Ethically. So we only make money when we're encouraging people to purchase from a more ethical company. So we only make money when we have succeeded at encouraging social good, encouraging people to buy from more ethical companies. So when I said in the beginning of this section, when I mentioned like baking in social good to your business model, that's what I was talking about. And if you go to the next slide, Linda, then like here's a few things that you have to think about when you're designing your business model. And these are 3 different things that you have to balance out. You have to balance the needs of your users. You have to try to do what's right for them and provide them a good service. You also have to, if you have investors, then you have to consider their needs. Investors want you to be profitable. They want you to grow. And so you have to balance profitability and growth versus like providing a good service for your users. And then the last one is like your own needs as a company. Like is your business model going to be sustainable in terms of like financially sustainable, where you can continue to make money in the long run? And also like for your own needs, you want to like stay true to your values. And so all of these 3 different groups, your users, investors, yourself, they'll tug your business model in different directions, and you have to try and balance that out. And back to the idea of baking social good into your business model. You can go all out and put your impact and intention, your mission, over your profits, which is great, but can result in a unsustainable business model. And then on the other side of things, you can like prioritize profit and leave the social good aspect as like an afterthought that you kind of throw in there, and you like try and fit it in. But if it can't fit in, then oh well. But what's best is finding a way to make your social good mission align with your profits, so that improving your profits also means improving your social good impact, so that they don't have to compete with each other. Next up is fundraising. But before that, let me address a couple comments. We can make the slide deck available. I'm not sure how to do that. I'll have to talk to the hackathon organizers, but we'll try and do that, Yvette. I got you. And I believe this is also being recorded. So if we can't get the slide deck out, then you can always go back through the recording. So back to fundraising. So the first thing we want to consider is why you're fundraising in the first place. Can you go back?
Yeah.
Thank you. So, and like, do you even need to fundraise? Fundraising sounds really cool. It's really like reassuring for yourself, like, that other people have validated what you're doing. Investors have validated what you're doing, but um, but just because investors don't invest in your business doesn't mean you don't have a good business. Um, Investors look for a very specific kind of business, um, and and that specific kind of business is not the only good and successful kind of business. Um, so you also like you don't necessarily have to fundraise. If you can create a business without fundraising and make your business profitable, um, bootstrap it until you're profitable, then that's really great. An example of a business that never took venture capital, and I'll explain venture capital in a second, is Ecosia. They were unattractive to investors, and now they have over 8 million users, and they're doing great. So it's definitely possible to succeed without fundraising. But some business models, fundraising is necessary because you have a lot of like upfront costs that you have to get over. Um, and some other things that like you might need to fundraise for are like advertising, so that you can market your product and make your product grow faster, if you deem that's a good idea. Investing in like uh, upfront cost if you have like hardware that you need to purchase up front. Uh, Hiring employees that can help take your business to the next level is a good reason to get fundraising. Um, and now let's talk about like some actual ways to fundraise. Um, so the first we'll talk about is venture capital. I mentioned that a second ago. Venture capital is uh, venture capital firms are they're firms, companies that that invest in companies. They give companies money in exchange for equity or ownership of the company, and this this is like one of the most popular forms of fundraising for startups, and it gets a lot of news and stuff. Um, and 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 there's definitely some good reasons to do this. Um, for example, like when you get investors invested in your company, now like they made a bet on your company and they want to make sure that their bet succeeds. So they're going to spend time and resources trying to help your company succeed. They're going to try and help it grow, help it become profitable. So they can provide connections, networking, and they can provide experience. They have investors tend to have a lot of experience, and they can help advise you on stuff like building your business model. Some disadvantages to venture capital are you have to obviously you have to give up some ownership of your company, and so that means you give up some control. You're no longer free to do whatever you want. You have to. It's another factor that you have to weigh when you're making decisions. How will this decision impact my investors? And your investors can get into the company and help, like, and they can take some control over the decisions you make as a company. And then investors, like I said, they're focused on a specific type of company. They're focused on companies that they think can grow fast and can grow big, because they're their entire job, their interest is spending a little bit of money now on a startup, helping it grow, and then cashing out a few years from now. And so they will, venture capital will apply pressure to grow, and that comes sometimes at all costs. They don't necessarily prioritize a sustainable business or a good business. Sometimes the social good aspect is not a priority because the core priority is growth and profitability. An example of a typical venture capital firm is Sequoia Capital. It's one of the biggest. There's also angel investors. Angel investors typically invest earlier than venture capital firms, and they also invest smaller amounts. And those are private individuals, wealthy individuals who oftentimes were entrepreneurs themselves in the past. And there, as a solution, or like partial solution to some of the cons that I talked about for venture capital, there's something called impact investing, or impact venture. And these are like branches of venture capital firms, or or whole venture capital firms that are focused on impact, social good, whether that's environmental impact or social impact, and getting investment from those impact ventures allows you to focus a bit more and get more tailored experience for making sure your company has a positive impact. An example of an impact firm is a Diverse City venture capital. Another form of fundraising is grants. Grants are great because they're basically like free money. And except for the fact that they require like really difficult applications. Oftentimes people hire grant writers in order to apply for grants because the applications are so difficult. As a partial remedy to that, there's a company called opengrants.io that is helping to make grants more accessible. You can go to their website and search for grants. And grants come from like federal government or nonprofits. And a great thing about them is that if you're making a social good company, grants oftentimes have an impact focus. So you can get grants for like solving an environmental problem or solving a social problem much easier than just a normal company that's not impact focused. And then the final type of fundraising we're going to talk about is crowdfunding. So we've all heard of this with like Kickstarter and Indiegogo. Some advantages include that, again, it's free money. You don't give up any equity, except, again, it takes a lot of effort to run a successful crowdfunding campaign. Crowdfunding campaigns don't go viral by themselves, pretty much. You have to put a lot of effort into it yourself to market it outside of the crowdfunding platform. And you have to make sure you have really nice graphics, a video with a really good narrative, high quality video. So it takes a lot of effort to reap the benefits and time as well. Another pro you get out of crowdfunding, though, is publicity. If you do run a successful crowdfunding campaign, it gets a lot of attention. can even get some press, which is great. Wait, quick, go back. I'm going to address a comment real quick. Yvette asked, are there VCs, venture capital firms, who do value doing good? Maybe you asked this question before I mentioned diverse city, but the answer is yes. There are impact venture capital firms who do value doing good, but it's definitely less common. Back to crowdfunding. There's another kind of crowdfunding that's not as well known, and it's called equity crowdfunding. And that's when you give up a little bit of equity in exchange for like micro investments. And so it's like a crowdfunded investment. Instead of giving away perks like you do on Kickstarter and Indiegogo, then you give away like tiny bits of ownership of your company. And an example of this is Start Engine, is a equity crowdfunding platform. Next slide. So when you get to the point of transitioning your startup from like a side project or a bootstrapped unofficial company to actually forming a legal entity, you have a few options of how to do that. The most popular option for startups is C corporations. And the reason for that is C corporations are the friendliest type of legal entity for investors. But as a social good company, one of the drawbacks of a C corporation, as forming as a C corporation, is that as a C corporation, you have a legal responsibility to make decisions that return a profit for your investors. And that restricts what you're able to do in terms of impact. It restricts you from making decisions that are maybe better for the environment, but don't get as much profit. Because if you do, as a C corporation, then the investors are legally allowed to sue you, which is not fun. And a remedy for this is public benefit corporations. This is a newer form of legal entity that was started in California. And as a public benefit corporation, you are allowed to make decisions that aren't as profitable, but are better for the environment or people, society. So yeah, if you're a social good corporation, or if you're a social good startup, then public benefit corporation is a good thing to consider. This is definitely not like legal advice, but just want to make you aware that there are options as a social good startup.
All right, let's go over some additional questions you might want to consider after you're deep in development of your project. So how will you use your profits? Think about how you want to use your profits. Like, will you pay you and your employees more? Will you use some of your proceeds to support certain initiatives? For example, Ecosia, which we mentioned earlier, is a browser extension and a search engine that uses their profits to plant trees. Another example is Tab for a Cause, which uses their proceeds to donate to a list of charities, which you as a user can choose from. Tab for a Cause is also an extension. For us, Ethically is planning on using a portion of our profits to make ethical products and brands cheaper for our users. This is still in the works, but we are thinking about doing that. And another question to ask is, how do you want to expand your project? So many startups try to grow fast, even at the expense of the needs that they might have initially wanted to address. For example, people or the environment, due to wanting to please investors, which Billy mentioned earlier. And something else to consider is, how do you keep an ethically oriented mindset when presented with funding opportunities? So this is the big question that you really got to think about. Really keep in mind your goals, and really keep in mind the initial part of why did you start your startup in the first place. So yeah, that was our little questions to consider. So let's go over the recap. We talked about motives, like what, why you might want to build a startup for social good. We talked about the different business models. We talked about different ways to fundraise, different places that you might want to look when looking for fundraising opportunities. And we talked about the questions to consider. And thank you. That concludes our presentation. Please feel free to email us if you ever have any questions about this presentation or Ethically itself at hello@ethically.com, or feel free to visit our website at https://ethically.com. We're still looking for beta testers as well, but thank you for listening to our presentation.